Hi everybody, welcome to my big backyard. I'm supposing that over time some of you have wondered how on earth I have preserved all of my harvest from this summer, or what I did with it, or what happened to all those tomatoes and peppers and things. And today I thought I would show you. Now the tomatoes are easy. Basically what I did with all of my tomatoes is cook them down in a big pot on the stove, blitz them up with a stick blender, and once they were all pureed and cooked down to a thick consistency, poured them into pint-sized containers like this, which then I froze. So I have quite a few of these containers of tomato, enough to last me the entire season. Another thing that I did with the tomatoes, well really the cherry tomatoes, is when I had a good quantity of cherry tomatoes and nothing to do with them, instead of splitting them down, I just froze them whole like this. These frozen whole cherry tomatoes are fabulous in things like chili and vegetable soup. They go in just as if it was diced tomatoes, and then they break down in the soup or stew or whatever it is that you're making. I really enjoyed using them that way last year. So what I was unable to use in salads this year, because I ate a lot of these fresh, I did freeze in bags like this. So I have 3 or 4 bags of cherry tomatoes like this that I can use whenever I want. Another thing that went into the freezer is this. This is cucumber. I froze a couple bags of cucumber in big chunks like this. My plan is to make this at some point into cold cucumber soup, which then I will freeze in pint containers like that and eat in the summer. I really actually enjoyed it, and if I make it now, I'll be able to eat it fresh in the spring or really whenever I want. It was delicious. It was cucumber and yogurt and dill and garlic. I mean, it was very good. I also have the garlic scapes from this year's garlic. The garlic scapes I'll be able to use in soup. They have great flavor, and there's no reason not to do that. And peppers. Well, obviously this is not all of the peppers that I've accumulated. This is just my most recent harvest. I'm saving this until I do another harvest. So this is just in a bag in the refrigerator right now. But these are cayenne and also Luchauer paprika peppers. And if you watch my paprika video, you'll see what I've done with these peppers. But as far as all of the peppers go, let me show you what I have been doing. This is peppers from last year. I did not grow ají charapitas this year, but last year I grew these peppers and they are fantastic. They are surprisingly spicy for what they are, but they also have fruity notes. They're not just a heat pepper, but they were delicious. So what I'm going to show you today is what I did with all of my peppers this year, almost. I did cut up some and put some in the freezer in chunks to go in chilies and things, but almost everything else I've taken care of a different way. And if you follow along, you'll see that. Now, I watch a ton of YouTube, and I've seen a ton of YouTube videos about freeze drying. And I loved the idea of freeze drying all of my vegetables. I was going to make powders out of my tomatoes. I had all these ideas. But freeze dryers cost like $3,000. And I don't have $3,000. That's a ridiculous amount of money to spend on a tiny garden like what I have. So I went for the next best thing, and I bought myself a decently rated dehydrator on Amazon. Now, I've played with this dehydrator quite a bit. And today I'm going to show you what I do to dry out those ají charapita peppers that you saw a minute ago. Those are going to be dried out and put away so that I can use that container for something else. Now the grid for a freeze dryer is a little bit big compared to the size of these ají charapita peppers. They would just fall right through. So in order to dry them, I need to put them on another tray. I do have a mesh grid that's smaller than this with my freeze dryer, but I'm going to dry the charapita peppers on this plastic tray here. In order to do that, this time I'm going to try to cut them in half. They're frozen right now. I've done a batch of these before. I did a whole batch of these and I did them whole and it took forever. And the problem with it taking so long is that they just dried out and they were browner than I wanted to be after being in the freeze dryer. So the idea is that if it doesn't take quite as long to dry, they won't be as toasty looking and I'll get a brighter colored dry peppers. I don't know if that's true or not, but today I'm going to cut a bunch of tiny peppers in half, if I can, and throw them on this tray. And it's impossible to watch me cut peppers in half, but there we go, half peppers. So stay tuned. I'm gonna cut every single pepper in half. I'm surprised they cut this well frozen, but that actually might be better. Ah, dropped one in the grid. All right, so anyway, stay tuned, and when they're all done, I'll let you know what's coming next. Okay, well, I'm all done cutting up my peppers. I did save these few out. I'm just going to use them in a recipe later today, so I don't need to put them in the freeze dryer or anything. I mean, in the dehydrator. I don't have a freeze dryer. I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression there. So, over here is my freeze dryer. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and spread them out onto this mat. This is the other grid I was talking about. The reason I'm going to do that is because I want as much air circulation as possible, as fast as possible for them, because that way they will dry out quickly, or as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to one-handed shove some stuff out of the way. Take these and spread them out on here. I wouldn't have left them lumped up on the plastic either. That's just not a good way to dry anything. You want to make sure everything you dry is completely spread out. You will notice I'm wearing gloves. There's enough heat in these that I will be sorry if I do not when I stick my finger in my eye or something later. They're starting to warm up and I can actually smell the heat. But they're a really good little pepper. They look really pretty on the plant too. It's like having a berry bush, really. I'll definitely be growing it again next year. And probably not because I actually need them, but more because I think they're pretty. All right, so I've got that done, spread out. I'm gonna slide this right into my dehydrator. Since nothing else is going in with the dehydrator right this time, I'm not gonna bother, I'll toss this in there underneath in case something falls through. Nothing really is gonna fall through there. But since nothing else is gonna go in there, I'm just gonna put it in the middle rack and leave it be. Shut the dehydrator. The dehydrator came with instructions, and the instructions say that it should be 125, and it says something like 14 hours to dry vegetables like this, but it takes way longer time. I'm gonna put this on for 24 hours. Oops, that's temperature. I want it 125 temperature. I discovered that in order to get your vegetables to the temperature or to the consistency that you want in order to powder them, it takes much longer than it would for just drying into like a leathery vegetable. Anyway, so that's it. Let's go.
Well, we all know I wanted a freeze dryer, but I got a dehydrator, and here's a clip that tells you what I did with it so far this season.
I've dehydrated a lot of things. Most of these things have been experimental, and my plan is to make spices out of them. So the first thing you see here is these are my green chili peppers. Some of them came out red, but these were Anaheim chilies or Big Jim chilies. And they are dried to the consistency where I could powder them up. The darker ones up here, they were not red peppers, those are smoked. So I smoked them and then dehydrated them. Right here, we have a similar situation. These are my Luchauer paprika peppers. The bright red on the bottom were dried fresh, and the darker red that you see were dried smoked. Also mixed in here are an Alma paprika peppers. So all of my paprika peppers are in the same bag. I intend to make paprika out of that. There's a whole nother video coming out about paprika. I did the same thing with my cayenne peppers. There's some dry fresh cayenne and dry smoked cayenne. Tomatoes. I was experimenting and I ran out of those pint containers. So what I did is I took tomato sauce that I would normally have poured into a pint container and frozen, and I poured it onto that plastic tray you see there. And I turned it into, I guess, tomato leather. The idea is that I should be able to take this apart, rip it up, and add that to soup and things as well. Or maybe I can powder it, but its consistency is a little bit flexible right now. I don't think I'm going to be able to turn that into a powder. I did an experiment with some peaches. I actually put a little bit of cinnamon and sugar on them before I put them in the dehydrator. They taste okay. It's not really my favorite thing. I think I would like these things better freeze-dried because freeze-dried would be crunchy. Ginger. I sliced up some ginger and dehydrated it. This was not the best quality ginger. This was ginger that had been in my fridge for a year and a half. It's kind of gross looking. I don't know that I'll actually use it for anything. I just did it to see if I could. I might do this with fresh ginger though and see how that turns out. I did buy some new ginger and I'm growing my own ginger. It's just not anywhere near ready to harvest yet. Mushrooms. I bought these mushrooms fresh from the farmer's market. I have some shiitakes and I have some baby bellas, which are, I think they're called cremini mushrooms. And I also have some, what's this other kind? Oyster mushrooms in here. And I've dried all three varieties. They dried up really nicely. I think that they will do great in soups and things. But the other thing that I did with those dried oyster mushrooms is that I powdered the dried stems. I have a spice grinder and I just dumped the dried stems in there and powdered them up. So now I have powdered mushroom, which I can use in something. These are the stems of the shiitakes. And the shiitake mushrooms are down there. So that was interesting. I'll definitely do that again. And just for an experiment, some other things I did is I dried some onions. Onions didn't dry crispy, they dried very flexible. I was thinking I could make these into like a onion powder or something, but they never crisped up. And I think it's because there's a lot of sugar in onions, or in these onions, I don't know. Some of these are red candy onions and some of them are white candy onion. My homegrown garlic was a successful thing to dry. I just sliced it up and dried it, and these little pellets of garlic are very crispy, hard as a rock. And so those will dry up nicely or go into soup. Those will be great. And here's some poblano peppers that I dried up. I'm probably not going to make these into a powder. I'm probably just going to toss them into some food. Anyway, that's what you've got as far as the things that I've already experimented with this year. If you remember, I said I had previously dried a whole selection of these ahi char pita peppers, and this is the powder that I got when I blitzed up the dried peppers. And this is a nice spicy flavor too. It does not take much. A little bit goes a long way. I spread some on tortillas that I put in my toaster oven to make like tortilla chips, and they definitely had a little bit of a kick and a little bit of a burn, and I didn't use very much at all. Anyway, one of the things that I have done with all of these bags of preserved food is I put one of these dry and dry silica gel desiccant packs in each one. I want to make sure that they don't get any moisture in them. Anyway, like I said, it was fun to experiment. I'm probably going to do more experimenting, and I'll show you what the ahi char pitas look like tomorrow. Have a great day. All right, good morning and welcome back. We are right on time for the end of the drying of these ahi char pita peppers. So I'm going to pull this out of here and set it down. As you can see, all these little teeny peppers are super dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in this bag that I have here, because as you can see, my bottle of pepper powder has actually got plenty in it. I don't know that I have room for any more, although I might. This probably won't actually take up that much space. But I'm going to put these away in this plastic bag for right this second. So that's it. That's how I dried my peppers. I've got a nice little bag of ahi char pitas to go with all of these other bags of dried ingredients. If you want to see the grinding process and see what I do to make it into a powder, that is part of the video that I'm going to be producing about how I'm making paprika. Anyway, that's it. Have a great day.